All right. Hello, and thank you so much for joining us for another episode of Jackman Radio on a live stream. I'm your host, Eric Jackman, one half of Jackman Radio, the Jackman Brothers. I am floored tonight, so excited, honored, and humbled that he accepted my invitation onto the program. This guy's a legend. He's been seen all over the world, and best known for his Donald Trump impersonation, which has been seen in all corners of planet Earth. It's Mr. John D. Domenico. John, this is great, man.
Thanks for having me on.
It's my honor, man. And you recently sent me a really nice birthday message, and it just reminded me. I've been thinking, I've always wanted to have you on my show, and we tried to meet in person a couple years ago. You were in Boston for some awards thing, I think, for the Emmys.
Right, and then you were in New York.
Yeah.
For something at one point. We missed each other by like 1 or 2 days each time.
Yeah, we were like ships in the night. But I mean, I do feel eventually, physically, we will meet in person. But this has to suffice.
It's going to happen.
But so among other things, obviously you're most well known for your Trump impression. But you have a variety of characters that you play.
Yeah.
Including Jay Leno, Dr. Phil, Austin Powers, Dr. Evil, Guy Fieri, and I remember you were developing Larry King, and you were developing a Bernie Sanders.
And I had pretty much perfected him, and then he just kind of, the primary, he just kind of died off. And the funny thing is, he's still around, but he's just not. At one point SNL had him, and everybody was doing their Bernie, and those are the moments to strike on those kind of topical characters. And of course, I've been doing voices since I was 5, and performing professionally since I was about 24. But lots and lots of stuff. The funny thing is, as I get older, the audiences get younger, and they don't know a lot of the characters. You know what I mean? It's right. Fascinating because I was doing Humphrey Bogart like in the late 60s, early 70s when I was a kid in my neighborhood, and he was already dead. You know what I mean? People dead now. I mean, I remember the drop off in Larry King as soon as he left CNN, because I was doing him a lot corporately because he was such a great character, and then vanished. I was doing Chris Matthews, and then stuff came out about him, vanished. It's amazing how things can just characters can disappear, and that's such a weird thing now,
Right.
Voices
right. They have universal recognition, and then
poof,
something happens. Right in the case of Chris Matthews, or anyone there.
Chris Matthews, up in Darby, Pennsylvania.
Shut up, Bagala! You're an idiot.
Yeah.
So.
He's laughing. I met him in Dulles. Was it Dulles Airport? I met him at one of the DC airports. I was like, "I do you." He's like, "What?" And I showed him a photo of me in full makeup as him. He got a kick out of that, man. He really
did. He ask for the impression?
Yeah, he did, and I did it. It was funny. He's really tall.
Yeah.
To me, I'm only 5'8", but I was like, "This guy's shockingly tall."
Yeah, he's got a big head. I mean, most of those people on TV have huge heads.
Yeah.
They're usually like that big. Yeah, I met Chris Matthews in Concord, New Hampshire during the 2008 primary, and I got a quick picture with him and said hi to him. But
I think I've seen that. I actually think I've posted that.
Oh, it's definitely out there. And then, of course, I met Matt Lauer. Speaking of disgraced former big shots in the media, I met him.
I met him, the summer before COVID. I got to meet him too. I was doing Trump of all things, and I was roasting a bunch of people at this thing out in the Hamptons. And there he was. I was like, "There's Matt." Oh, wow. I was like, "That's pretty amazing."
Yeah, I saw him at Trump himself was doing a Pancakes and Politics event up here in Atkinson Country Club in New Hampshire, and Matt Lauer was interviewing him for it. So they were there's like 100 of us in the audience, and I got a couple minutes with Trump afterwards, and I got him to sign my copy of The Art of the Deal.
Wow,
that's a life-defining moment right there, John.
Yeah. I have this cabinet back here on my books. The Art of the Deal is right up there, which my first wife bought me in 1987, and it's ironic because she wrote in the inscription in the book is, "Merry Christmas. I don't like this guy. I don't like what he stands for." This whole thing. This is my first book. It's 1987. And she wrote, "But this is what you wanted for Christmas." So she was very, she's
very prescient. Very prescient.
Very, very prescient woman. Very prescient.
Yeah, almost kind of ominous right there.
Yeah.
In that the inscription.
I never forgot. I show people that all the time. Like,
oh yeah. When people come through, I show off the thing like I'm a kid with his baseball card collection.
Yeah.
And when Trump was signing it, he's like, "Is it Eric with a C or a K?" I said, "Like your son, Eric with a C." He's like, "Oh, okay." And he just
there it goes. No one signs names the way I sign names.
Yeah. His signature is kind of like a doctor's.
Oh, it almost looks mechanical.
Yeah.
The way it's so interesting.
Yeah, he loves signing things, and my friend was asking me like, "How do you meet Trump, Eric, at one of these events?" I'm like, "Bring something for him to sign. Get there early, get front row, and then wave it after the event at him, and he can't help himself. He'll come over and he'll sign it." And my buddy brought his copy of the Art of the Deal, and sure as shit, Trump signed it for him, and he got to meet him. So
that's amazing.
That's a fun way to do it. But yeah, so I guess I want to kind of go back to the beginning because I've read and heard you say maybe in 03, 04, 05 is when you first did Donald Trump impression. Maybe you did it before, but like professionally.
Yeah, professionally. What happened was I've been doing voices since I was 10 years old. In fact, that photo right there, that's David Fry. And one of the first albums I ever bought was Nixon: A 4-Year Fantasy, where it's a comedy album, but it's a narrative comedy album, which starts, at the beginning of Watergate and goes right through to the end. And David Fry did all the voices, and he also wrote it. He's an amazing comedian, impressionist, great writer, great comedy writer. And on the album, Nixon: A 4-Year Fantasy, I think it was called. He the person he worked with, his kind of protege, was Gabe Kaplan, who went on to do Welcome Back, Kotter. But that had a profound influence on me, which is ironic because when I started doing Trump, it had nothing to do with politics. But I've been doing voices since I was a kid, and when I was moving to New York in the late 80s, that's why I was interested in Art of the Deal. When I was moving to New York to be an actor in New York, I already knew the history of New York, how it started as a trading post and all those things. I knew the history of the city. I just wanted to know what was going on in the city beyond acting and theater and film. And I was reading the New York papers pretty much every few days, and the name that kept coming up consistently was Donald Trump. Donald Trump. And I was like, who is this guy? And I bought into the whole Horatio Alger story that he, came from nothing. And, later on you find out that's true. But he was just amazing in how he was able to get himself in the paper all the time. And then years later, I kind of realized he did something. He's an amazing person when it comes to timing, because he saw that the Vanderbilts and the Astors and the Rockefellers were all fading away. And at that time in history, in the late 80s, no one was really stepping up saying, I'm a tremendous business person. I'm fantastic. Like all of these people, if you look at that period, nobody else stepped up and said, I'm a great business person. It's happening now with Jeff Bezos and Elon Musk and people like that. But at that time, there was a gap, there was a void, and Trump stepped in, which he's really good at. And so I was learning about him, and then I started working in Atlantic City, and he had a couple of properties there. And I actually met him in 1990. I was doing a show there. I met him in Marla Maples, and was really because he was still married to Ivana, and Ivana was literally 2 miles away running the castle, it was called the Castle at the time. It became the Marina. I worked at all the properties, and I just found him to be a fascinating guy. Then 5 years later, I co-hosted his 55th birthday at the castle. And that was really fun. And I got to share the stage with him and improvise with him and do a big number with him. And I could give you a lot. That story alone could be an hour. But it was great to meet him in person and kind of for the second time connect the face and the sound of his voice and start thinking about, this guy's really fascinating. And, since I had a speech impediment and I was in speech therapy for years, from first grade to eighth grade, that's where I learned to perfect a lot of voices because of the speech pathologist and the speech therapist. I I'm always amazed by people's voices. It doesn't matter who it is. But when it is somebody with a very specific way of speaking, I just thought, and I know people from Queens, and I know people from Brooklyn, and I know people from Manhattan. I was thinking, like, nobody talks like this guy. Nobody. It's like almost like this weird amalgamation of things. And he was kind of always in my head. And then there's Phil Hartman doing Trump. And he's almost like a cottage kind of thing in that period of time because he hadn't really broken out nationally. But I was just really interested in him. And then the first season of The Apprentice came on. And I was watching it and was fascinated by it and, had met him and just very interested in it. And the season ended and I was at, Barnes & Noble, and I saw the box set. The box set came out so fast. It was remarkable, but they knew they had something. And one of my agents called me and said, "Hey, are you doing Donald Trump yet?" And they said, "Just the voice, not everything else." And I said, "Yeah, he's in my head." I said, I know that. I know the sound. I know all the, specifics of the voice. So could you do an audition on Monday? And this was a Friday. And I said, yeah, I could. I'm pretty sure I could do that. So I ran out to Barnes & Noble, got that box set. It was 30 hours of material. And then I do what I do with all voices. I break the voice down into about 8 elements. So that it's throat placement, it's nasal placement, it's actual in-mouth vocal production, and then where is the actual sound of the voice. Then there's the whatever you're doing with it, whatever voice, the physicality of the face. Like if you're doing Austin Powers, baby, there's a lot of lip movement, man. Yeah. And with Trump, there's also a very specific kind of lip movement and all these things. So I wrote those all down, watched all the material. And what I found really interesting was, and I learned this later because I'm friends with some of the producers of The Apprentice, he read, anytime you heard him giving instructions, if you go back and watch the show, you'll notice it's the back of his head because he couldn't remember lines. And he was better, and he hated reading the prompter. He was terrible at it. So the most interesting stuff was the bonus material, where the cameras were still rolling, and he would say, "Oh, I hear you two have a relationship. Is there a relationship brewing between the two of you? Is that true? She's very attractive, Mike. She's very attractive." And that you could see, like, he has very specific interests. He likes people. He likes personalities himself, and he likes relationships, and those kind of things were important. And I remember the few times I had heard him on Stern at that time. And he was totally different on Stern. It was the other Trump, because there's multiple Trumps, as we all know. And he was different, all those different voices. So I kind of put them all together, went to the audition and booked it. And it was for Trump.
Wow. That's awesome.
It was for the boardroom game at the Trump Taj Mahal. And then I booked it. And then I spent a week in a studio in Princeton, New Jersey. That's where they were recording it. And on the ISDN line were 2 executives. One of them was Carolyn Kepcher, and there was somebody else. And their only direction for 5 days was be meaner, be meaner. You're too nice, be meaner. And I just thought that was, I was like, I must be doing something right. They're not really correcting me on anything else. And then I just incorporated him into a lot of my corporate stuff. And I was one of the few people doing him, because within within a few months, I'd put the wig together. I had Bob Kelly build the wig for me. He did all the Broadway shows and SNL. So he made my Trump wig. And then I went and got a Trump suit, the ties, and all those things. And it became a really good run because I was doing it in corp. I was doing trade shows and national sales meetings and award dinners, and I would go in and roast executives at like AT&T and manufacturing companies. It was just a great character. And we also did a scalable version of The Apprentice, which could incorporate over 250 people. That was kind of where we maxed out. Wow. But so I was doing all that stuff, and I was pretty much the only person doing him. So organically, I was number 1 on Google. If you put in Donald Trump impersonator, I didn't buy my position. It was just there. Yeah, I had been doing him for so long, and then I got a couple of movies. I did those parody movies that spun off from the Scary Movie franchise. So I did Date Movie, an Epic Movie, and a couple of other films. Yeah, and Meet the Spartans, which really kind of kicked it off for me. So with the feature stuff, and I started doing TV commercials, and I was doing all my other characters too, but Trump was just he was just there. I always, like Austin Powers is just one of those characters that I don't think it's ever going to go away. And then Trump, no matter what he does, because he's Teflon, he'll never go away. Yeah. And then when he really announced in June of 2015, because he, as he kind of toyed around with it for a long time. But when he really announced, by just sheer luck, my friend Tom Shalhoub had just taken over Red Eye on Fox. Oh, okay. And I had done theater with him, and we'd done stand-up together and in the Northeast. And he said, "Hey, do you want to be my Trump? Like, the timing's perfect." I said, "Yeah." So I did, over the next about 2.5 years, I did 50 appearances on Fox News. Wow. I did 4 appearances on Fox and Friends. But within a month of doing Red Eye, some of the writers from Conan O'Brien had seen me on Red Eye, and then Conan's people called me, and then I ended up doing like 52 appearances on Conan. And I think the last one was last year. He's left, and now he's going to HBO. But that was an amazing run. And now I'm the Trump on Howard Stern. I've done Kimmel 3 times. I've been on James Corden 3 times. So it's just, and I was Chelsea's Trump before she left. So all of these things just worked out so beautifully. And then I got an Amazon Prime comedy special. So all of this just worked out so great. And, it's something that I've been pretty much working towards since I was 24, Yeah. One of the issues that I've had, and I don't know if it's been an issue for you, I've done like 300 interviews with New York Times, Washington Post, London Times, all the major newspapers, Fox. I mean, ABC spent an entire day with me for a Nightline episode. NBC spent 2.5 days with me for a 7-minute story, which they broke into pieces, but you can find the whole thing. But because I was always wearing a mask, like essentially, no one ever knew who I was.
Right. You were just a Trump guy or just Trump guy.
And the funny thing is, I would do an event, a high-profile event. It would be like, the president of AT&T, Alec Baldwin, so-and-so, and Trump guy. It's like always like, "Hey, could you put my name in?"
Yeah.
I'm not a mannequin.
Could you remember there's actually a human being behind this?
It was always nice when I actually got credited, in those types of situations. But I did all that amazing stuff, and it was a hell of a run. As you know, you've had some probably amazing moments that you're like, "Wow, this is incredible."
Yeah, there are moments where you pinch yourself and you're like, just because I was crazy enough to get a Trump wig and paint my face and get the whole get up, and for me it started when I always a lot of what you say is kind of how I feel, and what I've told a lot of people who've asked me is that Trump is an eternally fascinating figure to me.
Yes,
and he's compelling, and you can't believe there's like a human being out there like this guy.
Yeah,
he's so outrageous and so over the top. It just says whatever comes. He has no filter. It just says whatever comes to his mind.
And he bends reality. It's just bends it.
Totally creates his own reality like he did 4 years as president. And everyone else has to kind of like fit into that and deal with it, So I knew about him probably around when The Apprentice was getting big. And then I would ask my dad about him. My dad would be like, "Trump, he's that real estate guy who's been bankrupt a bunch of times in New York." And for me, what really just fascinated me and maybe become kind of obsessed with this figure of Trump is when him and Rosie had their original feud when she was hosting The View. And Trump had the beauty. Yeah, Trump had the beauty pageant, and like one of the contestants messed up, and Trump wanted to give her a second chance and did a press conference with her. And Rosie's like, I do not enjoy him. And she like flipped his hair, and she's like, "Oh, everybody deserves a second chance." And Rosie's impression of him was pretty funny. And then Trump shot back. He summoned Entertainment Tonight's cameras up to his office at Trump Tower and went on a 2.5 minute takedown. That's one of the most compelling couple minutes of TV. He was like, well, Rosie O'Donnell's disgusting. I mean, you look at her, she's a slob. She talks like a truck driver. She's very unattractive, both inside and out. And I'm like, wait, this guy's like a 60-year-old man. He's a billionaire real estate mogul, and he's worried about like what Rosie O'Donnell is saying about him on The View.
Well, and the funny thing was, she was at their wedding. He had invited her to the wedding at Mar-a-Lago between him and Melania.
Rosie came to my wedding. She ate all my wedding cake, John.
I that's the thing, because it's like, doesn't matter friend or foe. If he sees an opportunity for free press, and we basically like milked that for 8 years. I think it was it was relentless. It was relentless.
And what was nice, when Rosie was sick or going through something, Trump tweeted nice things and said, "I hope you recover, Rosie," because they both need each other, at that point.
I hope you recover, because what you do, I'm going to call you a big fat cow, because that's what
horrible John, she's a slob.
Get better, and I love you so much, you pig.
She talks like a truck driver, and she's very unattractive. And I think I might see Rosie.
She smells. I've stood right next to her. She smells. And at the wedding, she took Ziploc bags of food home. Did you know that? Ziploc bags of food. I said, don't do that, Rosie. But she was like, I'm so hungry. I'm so hungry.
He would say that. So yeah, that happened. And I have a twin brother. Now, are you a twin, or you have brothers who are twins?
I have two twin brothers. I don't have a twin. Michael and Stephen are twins. But Michael and Stephen are fraternal twins, and they look totally different. And my brother Michael looks like me. Ironically, we all sound exactly alike. We all sound.
That's going to be a trip, the three of you guys together.
Oh yeah, it's crazy. Michael and I share the same sense of humor. He edits a lot of my material. We have the exact same sense of humor, but his is just a little more in one direction. So when I send him material, he'll take a joke like to the next step. Like, damn, how did I miss that?
Right, he'll elevate it.
Yeah, he'll elevate it and just capture something that I just did not see, which I love, because that's great. That's always great to have a comedy editor like that, or add additional material. So, and he's he runs his own company, which is essentially sells advertising, but he's a very funny guy. And we talk all day long through WhatsApp and everything.
Yeah. So that's awesome, man. So you can probably relate in being close with a brother and brothers who are also into entertainment and entertaining people, and do actually have a talent for it and an eye and an ear for it. My twin brother Mike, he does impressions, and some might even say, even though I'm the one known for the Trump impression, that his Trump impression may at some points be better than mine.
Right.
He does Trump very well too. So yeah, we were like our freshman year of college, like 05, 06. That's when the Trump impression became like big for us, and we were doing it for all our family and all our friends, and it became part of our repertoire. And then when you fast forward to 2015, 2016, when he actually announced he was running, and it became a real thing, and my friends were like, Eric, I remember you do Trump really well, man. You should have him like be a character that you bring out into public and do some skits and do some funny stuff with. So it just kind of clicked, and when he ran for president here in New Hampshire, we get pretty unbelievable access to presidential candidates.
Yeah, because I guess it's so small.
Yeah, we only got like 1.2 million people here, and it's even less people who are a lot of people are, but even less are engaged in the political process and actually go out to these things. But Trump was like, unlike any other candidate I've ever seen. This was my 6th New Hampshire primary, and when he ran in 16, he couldn't do the traditional retail, like small mom and pop shops, diners, political stops like other candidates do. He had to literally like have it was called the Verizon Wireless Arena in Manchester, New Hampshire.
Yeah. And as you probably know, he's not good on the one-on-one. That's not his strong suit.
Oh no, he's better in front of a huge crowd.
He doesn't want questions. He doesn't want to shake people. He doesn't want to individually. That's like a waste of time to him. And also, it's just not. He doesn't function that well in those situations. Hello, how are you? Good to see you. On to the next thing. He doesn't give a shit about some farmer. You know what I mean? I don't care about your fucking question. Let me talk. You listen.
Yeah, you sit there, you listen, okay?
Right.
I'll be brilliant, and you listen, okay?
Right.
But so yeah, I mean, I was really lucky. So a T-shirt company caught wind of my impression and really liked it. So they hired me to start showing up to Trump's rallies and events and other candidates' events as Trump in the costume to get attention and to advertise for their T-shirt.
Oh,
And
I didn't realize that.
they wanted me. They're like, name your price for what you want for this. And I was like, okay, and I put out a number there that I didn't think I would get, and I got it, and like no problem. I was like, holy shit, this is amazing. So that was like my first paid gig, and I went to a big Trump rally the night before the New Hampshire primary, dressed as him, throwing the shirt around just to get attention, and like halfway through the event, Trump spotted me and made a big to-do about me being there in the crowd, and called me up to the front of the stage, and it was wild. It was like probably
pretty cool. I remember when that happened.
Minute and a half or 2 minutes of Trump's attention and him saying some things, and he laughed and said, congratulations, man. I hope you make a lot of money doing that. So that was the moment where I'm like, all right, that's it. This is going to become like a bigger thing than I thought it would. And I got on TV a few times, got some more press and some more interviews, and then I could start saying I'm a professional Donald Trump impersonator. And that's when I reached out to you. I remembered, your stuff, and obviously I had seen you before, and I'm like, I would love to just pick his brain and get some advice from him. So I sent you an email and kind of told you who I was and some of that. And you're like, just get out there and do it. Get a profile on Gig Salad, which I did. And Gig Salad has kept me pretty busy the last few years. Yeah,
it's a great marketplace. That, Gig Masters, all these things.
Yeah, being on there. So yeah, it's still going. The last couple of pretty good sized gigs I had were back in June. I did Anderson Window, their corporate awards. They had an awards thing in Connecticut. Yeah, it was a great gig. And yeah, I went and crashed the meeting and made fun of the vice president and took over the podium, and it's like 150 people there. And it's I know the feeling when you walk into a room and you just own the room instantly.
Yeah. It's a wonderful feeling.
You just take over. And meanwhile, you're just some guy, you're just some jokes, just some trickster in a suit. And this is a guy, probably a VP, a high-powered executive. He makes, could make $500,000. He could make $1 million a year, Right. But you just push him aside like Trump did when he went over to NATO or the UN. He brushed the other president aside. He was just like.
Yeah, I think it was a G20.
G20.
The fuck out of my way.
Get the fuck out of here, you peon.
Idiot. I don't even know you. I can't even pronounce your country, so move, okay?
And you'd be lucky because I won't bomb it, but maybe we'll see what happens.
I just thought it was so funny. Not only did he push the guy out of the way, but he was like.
Yeah, he pimped right up.
Oh my God. It was like he was peacocking, baby. It was hilarious.
That's when he's in Mob King mode, when he does that.
Yeah.
Totally. The big black jacket he has where he's just a New York Mob King.
Yeah. It's like the League of Villains, and he's like getting to the front. It's so funny. But that's I recently did an event here in Las Vegas, and it was it was great to be in front of a corporate audience, which I haven't been in months. And this was May. You had said June. This happened to be May. And it was the audience was doubly engaged because this was their first meeting since COVID. They were, sorry.
It's Putin. Pick it up.
Duty. Hold on.
Vladimir, we can talk later in the hot tub.
Yeah. So actually it's a producer, but I just blew him off. But it was one of those things where they were happy to be out. I had performed for them once before. It was a quicker bit, but and I did like a full 45-minute set and, roasted like all the top people, and that spent weeks writing the script. I wanted to get as much material in about their company and what they did. And, it was fascinating. It was actually a really cool company. And it just felt so great, and everything hit when you do that, when you spend that much time writing and putting a script together, and multiple drafts, and you run it by some of your comedy friends and like, how can we tighten this up, and what can we do here, and then you have to also be cognizant of when you have to do a really long set like that, you want to make sure you have enough material. I always overwrite.
Yes,
I can cut on the fly, but it was really great. I've had a few more of those, and I just booked a show in Chicago, and it's like, it's coming back. It's finally, it's coming. It's coming, and and I was lucky enough to work on the Fox series this summer with Robert Smigel from SNL and all those other shows, Dana Carvey's show, where where it was called Let's Be Real, because we shot the pilot a year ago this month, and then Fox sat on it and then gave us the green light March of last year, and then we went into production in June, and then we shot 5 episodes of the show. Unfortunately, they gave us no support, no advertising, no marketing, and the show didn't really go anywhere, but I got to work with some great people. I actually worked with Anthony's old partner who did Bernie,
James Adomian.
Yeah, James Adomian, who's so funny.
Oh,
and,
he's brilliant.
Piat Michael, who's he's our Joe Biden, along with a bunch of other voices, but he's just this amazing comedic voiceover artist. And we had a great crew, great cast, but it just didn't take off. And it always amazes me that I don't know if you follow British comedy. Something tells me you do. But, right now on BBC One and BBC Two, there's it's like 20 different sketch shows, right? And they're hilarious. And these people go on to bigger, much bigger and better things. All we have is SNL in this country. Makes no sense to me.
Yeah, you would think there'd be a lot more.
350 million people. We have one sketch show. It doesn't make any sense. And I know there's the Black Ladies Comedy sketch show. That for sure, that's a great show. But where are all these? I mean, I think there's so many opportunities for a sketch comedy show, and not necessarily about Trump. I just mean just different. Something targeted to 50 years old. Something that targeted. Everything seems to be the demographic seems to be much younger. So
yeah, and SNL has its good moments, but overall, I'm pretty disappointed with SNL. They're really hit or miss, and I don't know. I think sometimes they're funny, and a lot of times they're just trying really hard, and they kind of have talking points, and it's in a kind of a political path that they're following. I don't know.
Well, it's funny you say this particular episode didn't seem to have any of a political view at all, but there were a couple of really good, well-written sketches, and then there was some other stuff. I was like, "What is this?"
Right.
It just would. But Rami Malek, is it Robbie or Rami? Rami.
The guy who's in the new Bond.
Yeah, Rami.
Rami Malek. Yeah.
There were a couple of sketches, and he was excellent. The Squid Game parody was really funny.
Did you watch Squid Game?
I know. I started to.
God, dude, it's so dark.
Yeah. Oh,
so
the 2 episodes that I saw, I was like,
yeah, they could show that to Trump, and he'd be like, "Is this what I was doing in Korea with Rocket Man at the DMZ? This is what was going on at the DMZ, John. Squid Game, unbelievable." That was a highlight when he went and shook Rocket Man's hand at the DMZ. I really chalked it up as one of my favorite moments of Trump's presidency.
Twice.
Yeah. It's just all
no
the hype.
Treaties, nothing.
No, yeah. And it's cool because my best friend from college is very close with Dennis Rodman's translator when he's gone over to North Korea.
Right.
So I've heard peripherally through that, I've heard some pretty insane stories that I hope one day I can talk about on a podcast or have them
verify and then talk about.
Have them come on and talk about. But that's another thing about Trump's character. No one could do that the way Trump did it.
Right.
Could just go over there on they're both cults of personality. They're both, bombastic, larger than life figures, Trump more so than Rocket Man, but
and wing it.
Oh, totally. Yeah. Just go over there during the debates. He's like, "I'll bring him over a hamburger. We can talk. Okay. I'll bring him a hamburger."
Do you realize you have all this great beachfront property?
Right. We could develop it.
Don't do this. Develop this.
We could turn it into something so beautiful.
And it's untouched. We can do this. We can do this. And Kim Jong-un is like,
yeah, he's a little off the rails. So I got to ask you, John, what kind of response do you get from your family? When you go to family parties and family gatherings and you meet with people from your hometown or from your past, and they see the amazing success you've had and all the achievements you've had with this impression and comedy.
I've got all the losers out of my life. There's no one. I talk to no one. I just talk to you, Eric. That's it. It's been beautiful because, everyone I went to grade school with, middle school with, high school with, college, and I'm still friends with a lot of these people.
Right.
I actually had a friend, I was on The Good Fight with Christine Baranski. which I shot like February of 2020. But she wrote me and she wrote, Sean, I'm so proud of you. This is what you always wanted to do. You make a living as an actor. You make a living as a comedian. And we're so proud. And I just made me cry, because I've been doing this. I'm 58. I'm going to be 59. I became a professional actor comedian when I was 24 years old. And this is all I've ever done. And this is a tough racket. I mean, this is tough.
Racket's a great word for it.
Yeah, it is brutal. I mean, you can have these. I've performed for 5,000 people, and you're on this high, and then you get on the plane, you fly home, you take your trash out, and you're nobody. And it's a very weird thing. You'll take whatever you can get because that's just how it is. There's plenty of people that I know, younger people in LA who have a manager and you can't do that. But I've always just I have to work because I have to eat and I have to pay my mortgage. So the response has always been really supportive. I've never had anything negative from anyone I know. Everyone's been really great because I know this is all I've ever wanted. I just want to perform. I want to make a living. I'm not one of these people, I want to be a celebrity or I want to be rich. I've never said that. I've never pursued being famous. I've never pursued money per se, other than to pay my bills. This is what I want to do. I love getting in front of an audience. I had 2 shows this past week here in Las Vegas. Both of them were freebies, but I need to constantly be in front of an audience, not for just adulation and affirmation, but I'm always writing new material and I got to get that in front of an audience and I got to make sure the response is right. And if I have to go back and cut 2 words out of a sentence, I intrinsically don't know that myself, but I know it once I'm in front of an audience. I can always fix a joke, but I have to get it in front of people. And the second show that I did, I think it was Thursday night, I had a great response, but I knew once I was done, I could have made that so much better. Just the way I had structured the bit, I could have made it better. So
right. I always do this too after big gigs, especially if someone films it for me or I have some recording of it. I do the Monday morning quarterback and I'm like, that could have been way better than just that one line there. I could have just added this one little thing to it. But that's the thing with Trump, the material. I mean, because when he was on Twitter, and I know you probably went through this too, we could barely keep up with all the new material.
Honestly, yeah. There were things and I was up every morning. I'm obviously on the West Coast, and I'm behind you guys. So I can still remember. And I mean, I checked Twitter and I checked Huffington Post and I checked the New York Times and I checked Fox. I just needed to know everything. And I remember I was on a corporate job and somebody said, "You're going to mention Scott Smith tonight?" And I'm like, what? Who are you talking about? Because I'd been in my room writing and something had broken 3 hours before I had gone on. It was for a big group. And I just remember thinking it's impossible to keep up. But here's the lesson I learned. I'm a junkie. I'm a news junkie, and I'm obviously doing Trump. And I found that the audience is about 2 days behind unless someone dies. But they're about 2 days behind because I was doing a show for 6 months here in Las Vegas. And I was putting in stuff that was happening that day. And I noticed the response wasn't there. And it took me a while to figure it out. It took about 2 days for it to hit the regular public who's working and traveling and may not be interested in politics, but they know Trump's the president and this thing and that thing. So I kind of gave myself a break and I realized the hits work and the hits. And then filtering new material in after it has had a time to get through to the general audience. And that was the great thing about doing a show that ran for, we ran for 8 months, but doing multiple shows a week really helped me fine tune what the audience was expecting from Trump. I knew what I was going to give them, but how detailed I got didn't matter as much as the bigger brushstrokes. They weren't looking for something that just went down that day. They were just looking for the bigger brushstrokes that they knew from the last few weeks and things like that, you know.
Yeah, it's such a great point, man. Always studying your audience and doing the best recon and research you can before you're going in with a certain group, because they're gonna at some level know about Trump and what he's been saying or what he's been up to. But just like you said, if you just try to go as current as possible, you might miss them on some things, because
you're ahead of them. You know?
Right. Stuff needs to saturate a little more for general public who aren't freaks like you and I that pay attention to everything that the guy says
and tweets that. A lot of people aren't on Twitter.
No,
a lot of people are not on Twitter. I'm pretty much off of it now because I don't have to be there, and it's like a cesspool. So
Twitter is really gross. Yeah, I mean, I keep it going just because I have my podcast and my show, and it's good for that sort of stuff. But you're right, man. It is really gross. And Chappelle said in his recent special that Twitter is not real. It's not real life. Remember that, people. You know? So that's something good to keep in mind. So what was your favorite, most memorable Trump gig, and what was the worst one?
There were really big audiences, big shows. There's not a specific one. There were some specific things that happened, meeting some really famous people and sharing the stage with them. And, you know, it was more like working with Conan on stage, doing Comic-Con all those years. So that audience was, when I came out, they were booing me, just booing the Trump character, booing them. And it was loud. It was like 3,000 people. And it's like this energy, because they love Conan and they're a bunch of nerds, and you could feel it in your chest. Like this isn't an opera crowd. So when I came out, I had, turned up the confidence to 11, and I came out, they're booing me. And I said, this is tremendous. They're calling me their boo. They're calling me their boo. And I improvised that line, and it saved my life because it totally disarmed them. So that was, I think, in one audience, if I didn't have that line, I don't know how I would have turned them around. So that was kind of like the best, potentially the worst, but also the best at the same time, to be in the hands of Conan's writers, to be on stage with Conan, and to be able to be in the flow, like you weren't hemmed in. That was amazing. And then when I got the call from Howard Stern's people to join that show, that was pretty cool. So these things just keep building. But what's really the biggest takeaway for me has been like just how wonderful everybody is, and how creative everyone is, and how professional all these shows that I've worked on. Everyone's just been so great. And I can't think of, I remember clearly bombing as a stand-up. I mean, like death on ice, but nothing specific with Trump, because the audiences have just been so great. And it's been such a zeitgeist moment to have been doing this guy for so long, and to be in his skin, and then for him to announce and just be in the right place at the right time.
Yeah, it's like a rocket ship, is what I tell people. And, obviously I'm nowhere near the level you're at or have been at, but to just constantly, while it was happening, be getting calls for media appearances, pretty well-paying gigs, it really was pretty surreal. And I really enjoyed every second of it, and I still do. I don't take any of it for granted. And,
because everything, like, I got one of the studios asked me to fly out and have a general meeting with the studio. And, I got on the private plane and I flew out, and we had a lunch at a great restaurant. It was very exciting. And, and I've been through this. I've been up for TV and film stuff and all that. And you think, oh my God, it's a studio. This is going to be, this is amazing. And you're having lunch and you're trying to be cool, and people are asking questions. And then you go home and you fly home, and it's like,
yeah, I know.
Is this on? Is this
hello? I have my number, right?
Hello?
You have my email.
Yeah. I was like, nothing. Like, nothing.
Yeah.
It was fun. It was great. I'm so glad it happened. But it's like, I really need need like a show or something.
Yeah,
or
what can we get going
like a
here?
real director, not a self-produced comedy special. You know, and you're so close on so many things. So, I mean, I can tell you the stories. I was so close on, and I'm not, and it sounds like I'm ungrateful. I mean, all this stuff been amazing, but there have been a couple of like really big projects that fell apart. I was like, fuck.
Yeah, like sand in your hands.
Yeah, it's like sand in your hands. And I listen. I know many actors who've been through this and these situations, and they've been very close. And I'm very lucky to make a living at this. Obviously, I need to kind of like move on. I'm always moving. I'm like a shark. Like, what's the next thing? And working. You know, I'm trying to get back to regular stand-up. I've had a couple of normal stand-up dates, and that's what I want to do. I want to get back to stand-up, get my face out there as opposed to the Trump face, you know, which it's a mask. It's a mask.
Yeah, it's not really who we are. We're not really Donald Trump. So do you find this for a lot of gigs or outings or events where there's a lot of projection onto you when you're in this character and people want you to be a certain way or behave a certain way, and you just got to give it back like a football, like an improvised football?
Well, here's the thing. I mean, this happens all the time. People make assumptions about my political views and who I am and what I do. And it happened just the other night. I was as myself. I was actually at a gala where I just had to do like 5-10 minutes as me. But the people when they find out you do Trump, they just assume certain things, and they say, isn't he the greatest, isn't he the best, and you know, blah 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 blah, and you must be so happy, and I always say he's incredibly fascinating. That's what I always say. He's really fascinating. He's a fascinating guy, you know, because I don't want to remain neutral for the most part, but it's like, what am I going to say?
No, absolutely. I mean, you know, you go back to this thing. I don't want to bite the hand that feeds me, and
exactly. And also, just as a performer, as an old school theater guy, performer, stand-up comedian, all the things that I've done, I don't want to alienate half my audience. And I think you and I may have messaged each other back and forth. The thing I didn't like about, and I've opened for Alec Baldwin. I mean, they've hired me to open for him.
Yeah, I've seen you guys together. That had to have been surreal.
And it was great. And and I didn't say this to him, but the one thing that I thought that hurt his performance as Trump was his absolute hatred of Trump. It really leaked through his performance. And I would say that to his face. But obviously that was a choice. He's been Oscar nominated, but I think it hurt the performance in the end. It was so arch. It was such an arch kind of represent, because when he does Tony Bennett, have you ever seen him do Tony Bennett?
I haven't, but I imagine that's pretty good.
Oh my God. It is. It's hilarious, but you can tell he loves Tony Bennett. So that changes the performance, and what I want to do as someone who trained, at HB Studios with the Foundation Theater, all these theater companies I was with in New York, they always said, like, the first thing you learn is you have to love the character that you're playing. When I'm playing this character, shooting, when I did the Canadian show, You Got Trump, we were shooting like 14-hour days. Like, I could not dislike this character. That was, was a month of shooting. And I have to like this. I'm living in this character really long days. If I would dislike him that much, there would be such a divide and there would be such a void in the performance. I think I know it would have killed it for me, and it really would have zapped my energy. So for me, I have to remain neutral. Obviously in private conversations, that's something else. But for me, once I'm performing and I'm a professional, my job is to love this character just like a person who loves themselves, because that's how they function. Or they pretend to love themselves and there's actually a lot of self-loathing, but then you're getting really deep into the psychology of the character. But that's a totally different thing. So
Yeah, that's why I've always liked Daryl Hammond's take on Trump, because he was asked about it and he's like, hate the guy. I love this character of Trump. I'm fascinated by him. I think he's hilarious. Yeah,
it's Faust. It's a Faustian character.
It is.
Even right down to him being like, Faust was fascinated with his daughter. Like, it's insane. He had 2 sons, a daughter. I mean,
oh my God.
Morons. I mean, there's so many elements, and I've always said he's a Shakespearean character. He's big. There's so much intrigue around him. There's spies and Russians and that thing, and people, porn stars. I mean, like, if you wrote this book 20 years ago, people would have said, no one's going to buy this. He's sleeping with a porn star and he's having an extramarital affair for a year with a playmate, but he's married to a model who's a Russian who
just had a kid.
Yeah, who just had a kid, and no one can. Why did she get in on a genius visa?
She's a genius. She is.
Yeah, you know what I mean? It's like, if you wrote all those details, someone would go, I can't buy this.
It is unbelievable. It's still hard to believe, man. I wake up some days and say to my brother, I go, dude, he was in charge of the nukes for 48 months.
Yeah.
Donald Trump acquired nuclear weapons and had them for 48 months. So what do you think, John? Do you think he runs again? And obviously we want him to. I'll admit to you, John, I want him to run again. I definitely do.
I definitely think he's going to run. I think he's got, when he entered office, he had 3,800 lawsuits he was dealing with. 3,800. He had just settled on Trump University, where he says he won, but he actually had to pay out like over $25 million.
It's still a win, John. I didn't have to admit fault. I still won.
Right. And that's his MO. But the 6 criminal complaints, the SDNY, I think that's going to go away because the timing of Cyrus Vance leaving is very strange. The state criminal complaint, they have the evidence. They just haven't moved on it. And I think no one wants to be the person to indict a former president. Now, when you get to Georgia, those complaints are very, very specific, and there's a lot of evidence. There's a lot, and it's not even like circumstantial. It's like him calling up saying, I want this done. So those criminal complaints, those 6, out of all of them, the Georgia ones have the most legs out of, and then we'll see what happens with January 6th or any of those. I don't think there'll be a criminal complaint coming out of those. And obviously 2 impeachments doesn't matter to a lot of people. So,
no. Well, people's memories are so short in our country, man, especially your average American. Because like you mentioned earlier, people are busy with their lives working. They got families, they got what they're doing, and they can only really see what's put right in front of them.
Yeah, they're dealing, and there's a lot of fun, and and COVID has in some areas made it, from as we all know, some people are drilling down, and other people are like, I don't want to deal with it. I just want to live. Leave me alone. So, but to go back to your initial question, as long as I've been following him, which is since the late 80s, and had met him and know a lot about Atlantic City because I know a lot of people from there and Philadelphia and New York, the guy's Teflon. It's absolutely remarkable to me. All the things, that nothing has stuck to him over the years. I mean, like nothing. It's really incredible. So I don't think he has to worry about anything. He tells his followers one thing, they're gonna believe it. So he's got an army of 74 million people. I think with the voter restriction laws in all the states, and I've read the legislation, it's very clear they want to really restrict how people vote. The thing with the water, I mean, like, what? You can't be driven to the voting. I'm like, what are you talking about?
Yeah, a lot of shenanigans.
They've been voting by mail since before the Civil War. To restrict mail-in voting is just crazy to me. So, right. I think with the and no Republican has won the popular vote like in 20 years in the presidential, but these voting restrictions may change that. And if you have him, and he has I'm kind of tuned into I don't even say Republican, a lot of the Trump stuff, and I get a lot of the emails. And when I see like, we need to get together and form a militia for people to go to the voting stations for voting integrity, I'm like thinking like, what? Why?
Yeah.
You're an outside group. You don't do voter integrity. That's not your job. That's the state and the precinct or the parish or wherever they're actually doing it. Not a group, not an outside group who has absolutely no authority. That's like a vigilante group going to a voting station. I find that there's certain things I find kind of scary, the way things are being.
Yeah. Oh, a lot of scary things happened over that time. And I mean,
but to answer your question, I do think he'll get the nomination. I do think he would win. Yeah,
and Jon Stewart is saying that too. He's like, guys, don't sleep on that happening. Like, the nomination is definitely his if he goes forward. He'll clear the field. All the others have already said that, like Nikki Haley and Christie probably would still run, but ultimately I don't think they have it over Trump in a primary. No way at all. Pence doesn't have it. That guy's a freaking wet blanket.
He's the worst.
Yeah,
what did he do for 4 years?
He just sat there and he looked awkward for 4 years.
I mean, he just did nothing. He did nothing.
Yeah, he's a tough one to impersonate too, because he doesn't have this outward stuff about him that you could even like or admire and inspire you to even want to get an impression of him.
Yeah, it's fascinating. So anyway, I'm sure you're running out of time. We're going up.
Before we did, I wanted to quickly ask you. I think this is true. You were in an episode of The Sopranos and True Detective.
Yeah. I was in True Detectives, the early iteration of it, which was more like a mysteries. It was a recreation show. So it was not HBO, but I did do The Sopranos. I was in the Heidi and Kennedy episode. I worked a week and a half on the show, and I was playing Michael Imperioli's neighbor.
Howie Reinstein.
Howie Reinstein. And what it was a woman who was playing my wife. It was the woman who was playing his publicist for the record company and her husband. And then another couple that was an integrated couple. Well, not black and white. It was white and Indian guy. And we shot, and the whole subplot of this episode was that Christopher was moving away from Tony. He was trying to get out of the mob. That was the whole episode, the subplot of this episode. And what would happen is he'd be having a barbecue, and it would be just these three couples, and Tony and Carmela would show up. Or be having a dinner, and it'd be Tony and Carmela would show up. So Tony was catching on to the fact, like, what is happening here? Like, who are these people? These are all civilians. Why is Christopher hanging out with them? And I was really excited. And, I've worked on a lot of stuff, and you get cut from stuff. Mm-hmm. But I thought, there's no way they're cutting this. I mean, we're in multiple scenes. We're in multiple locations. And when we were filming this episode, one of the days was at Silver Cup Studios in Astoria, Queens, is where they shot all the interiors. Like Vesuvio's was right there. But we're inside this funeral home, and there's a body double in the casket, and everybody is there. I mean, every character from every season is there if they're not dead. And I'm saying to the woman who's playing my wife, I'm like, can you believe this? Can you believe this? Like, everybody is here. Like, how lucky are we? Everybody from every preceding season is here. And you're looking around like everybody, and there's David Chase, and I was just blown away. And there was a lot of downtime this particular day. It was a 17-hour day. I mean, I'll never forget, because I got there at like 3 a.m, and I was death. So we're waiting, and they're like, okay, B team out, A team in. So all the A-team actors who are going to be in front of the camera come in. And there's Michael Imperioli, and I had obviously met him. I'd worked with him. He walks in. The guy in the casket sits up. People help him out. And then Michael Imperioli gets in, and everybody on that set, and I mean everybody went, oh my God, Christopher's dead. Christopher's dead. And, we had signed, we couldn't talk about it. Nothing could be said. And it was unbelievable. Like, I knew like a bombshell about The Sopranos. Christopher Moltisanti was dead. And we didn't know because we never got to see the scripts. Because anytime we would say, can we see our lines? They'd go like this. And we go, So, and there's another great subplot to this, not to the story, but I got to meet Matthew Weiner, who went on to do Mad Men, who told me an amazing story. But so 9 months go by. Here's the Matthew Weiner part that's actually important. So I'm sitting there, I'm talking to this guy, and I said, hey, how you doing? He goes, good, how are you? I said, who are you? And he goes, I'm the writer. I write the show. I said, oh, I thought David Chase. Well, he goes, David hasn't written an episode in years. He goes, I write the show. I go, really? He goes, yeah. And so we got talking, and he said something. One of the things about The Sopranos is it always seemed like a movie to me. And he said, we talked and talked. And I said, this show seems different to me than any other show I've ever seen. He said, well, that's because we shoot it like a movie. I'm like, because we shoot the entire season before you ever see the first episode. So we shoot it like a 12-hour movie. We edit, we go in, everything. But he said, do you ever notice the episodes always kind of like 58 minutes, 100, like they're always a little different? And I was like, yeah, I have. And he said, did you notice the 1 year where we didn't start where we were supposed to? We were supposed to come on in January and then February, and then we were like 3 months late. He goes, that's because David wouldn't release it. He wouldn't release it until we were done, and we were done the editing, because he wanted the whole thing done like a movie, like the whole thing's going to be real, And I was like, wow, that's fascinating. I said, that's why it has that neat connective tissue between each episode. He said, exactly. We take our time shooting. I was like, wow. So 9 months go by. My episode comes on, and you're there with because you're
It's huge. So huge.
So they're driving down the road. The two girls, Heidi and Kennedy, are drunk driving. Christopher's driving, and James Gandolfini. I'm switching between the actors' names so anyway, he's driving. He's like, hey, you on drugs? No. He's already had a baby. So the baby seat is in the back. So these kids come down the road. They lose control. The car goes off the road. Okay. And I'm thinking, like, he's in an accident. Like, where's our scenes? And then he gets out. Soprano gets out. What's his first name? Why am I blanking out on his name?
Tony Soprano.
Tony Soprano. So Tony gets out, walks around. Christopher's bleeding. Oh, Tony. And then Tony looks at the baby seat and looks back to Christopher. And the thought is, because I had to find out later, but I was like, what's about to happen? And his thing is, he's back on drugs again. He's going to ruin his kid's life. So he kills him. I'm like, where's all of our scenes? Where's all of the preceding scenes? And all of a sudden they're at the funeral, and now it's just like, you see me in the background with the woman who plays you see me over here, you see me. And I just remember thinking, like, what the fuck? What the fuck?
Oh,
and
man.
They just decided, instead of Tony having to go through all these reasons, they just made it as simple as possible, and he killed him right there. I'm like,
and that had an impact on how much we would have seen you screen time in that episode.
But yeah, I had lines.
Your mug was still in there, though.
Oh yeah, and I still get paid.
But still, the glory is having lines and more screen time.
Oh my God, that would have been incredible for my demo reel to be on The Sopranos.
Yeah.
And it's like, I look like an extra, but I'm not, because I'm credited. I'm plainly credited. I don't credit extras, but like, there I am. There's my character's name, because I was referred to as the character in the show, but it was like,
yeah. You don't know how it's going to turn out. I was lucky. The one movie that I was in was a trauma movie with Lloyd Kaufman.
Right. I remember you doing that. Those guys are great.
Which was cool. Flew out, and my lines didn't get cut. I had a scene with Lloyd. I was on set 15 hours. The whole deal. But I was. There's always time where you're worried. You're like, they might just cut the whole thing.
Yeah. And a lot of people, in the history of actors being cut from films goes like back in time. Kevin Costner was totally cut out of The Big Chill. I mean, totally. Every scene cut out. Because when they go into the editing room, they make a decision, and you're like, your first thing, I think it's just you. You know what I mean? Like, was it me? Was it me? Yeah. It wasn't you. It wasn't me, because it was me, my wife, the other couple. They
right.
This whole subplot up, and they decided not to use it. And that's how it is.
That's life. Well, still, man, what a surreal experience, and you have that. And it's an awesome story, man. Thanks for telling me about that. So, we can wrap it up here, John. I just want to know what's next for you. I mean, what's in the future for you, and tell everyone where they can find you.
You can find me on YouTube at youtube.John D. Domenico Comedy. I have a web series called Orange Acres. It's Trump and Melania broke, having to find a job and put their lives back together. You can find me on Cameo at The Johnny D Show. I've done over 1,480 cameos as Trump, but I can do it as any character. Find me on TikTok. I currently have 5.4 million followers. I'm actually going to get into Trump and shoot some TikToks and some other stuff. There's always another project, live shows. I'll be in Chicago the 3rd of November, and I have a show in San Diego. So I'm still doing shows, and I'm going to be putting a show together here in Las Vegas, which will hopefully be up by springtime. And we're not sure what it's going to be. It'll probably be me doing a lot of voices and doing like we're thinking of maybe the last 5 years, doing like a 90-minute show about the last 5 years, where I start out as me and then end up in full makeup as Trump.
Right, a metamorphosis over the 5 years.
Yeah, which you would relate to.
Oh yeah, whatever it ends up being, we'll be following along, John. And it was really cool to finally talk to you here.
You too, man.
And
this is great.
Connect, man. And you're always an inspiration to me, and I always really appreciate what you do. And keep at it, man. We're gonna keep doing it. And
I have no choice. I have a mortgage. I have 2 ex-wives. I have to keep working. Absolutely. Attorney's fees.
John, I can relate to that big league, okay? The real Trump can relate to that big. But everyone, thanks for tuning in, and check out, I dropped John's info in the description of this video. Follow his stuff, subscribe to him on YouTube, TikTok, the Bing-a-bang-a-boom. Yep, the internet's the Bing-a-bang-a-boom. Baron's really good with the internet, as we know. I'm not so good. The cyber. Yeah, the cyber.
Very smart with the cyber.
Yeah, he's very smart with the cyber.
Very smart with the cyber.
I have no doubt, John, we'll meet in person one day, and then maybe collaborate on something.
All right, man.
But thanks for tuning in, folks, and be sure to subscribe to this channel and and follow us all on social media. And signing out for Jackman Radio, I'm Eric Jackman. Peace and love to you all. Thank you.
See you guys. Bye. Thank you.
Thanks, John.